Let me ask you something. Have you ever held onto something longer than you should have? Probably was a job, a relationship, a friendship, or a version of yourself. You feel the tug, you feel the shift, you feel the discomfort, but you keep telling yourself, maybe it's just a phase. Maybe I'm overthinking. Or maybe I just need to push through. Nobody tells you how confusing this part is. The part when nothing is wrong, but nothing feels right. When you are grateful, but not fulfilled. When you are loyal, but slowly disappearing. If you've ever been asking yourself, am I supposed to stay, or is it time to move on? Stay with me, because today we're talking about something every person faces at some point. How do you know when it's time to move on? And more importantly, how do you trust yourself when you feel that shift? This is TrueShift, where purpose meets courage and real transformation begins. In episode 3, we talked about choosing yourself. But choosing yourself often leads to a crossroad. A moment where you realize something in your life is actually done. Because once you start choosing yourself, a new question shows up. How do I know when it's time to move on? And that's what we're unpacking today. Not from a position of fear, not from guilt, but from honesty. Because sometimes you're not in crisis. Nobody cheated. Nothing exploded. There is no dramatic moment. Everything looks fine. But inside, something feels heavy. Something feels off. Something feels finished. And you start wondering, am I ungrateful? Am I impatient? Am I being dramatic? Or is God actually telling me it's time? Most of us don't struggle with knowing what to do. We struggle with admitting what we already know. Because moving on, that requires honesty. It requires courage. It requires letting go of the familiar, even when the familiar is draining you. Sometimes we'd rather stay in something comfortable but misaligned than step into something unknown but necessary. Let me say this clearly. Questioning whether it's time to move on does not make you weak. It doesn't make you disloyal. It doesn't mean you're broken. It usually means you're growing. And growth will always make old spaces feel tighter. Because most of the time, God doesn't announce transitions with fireworks. He whispers. So here's how some of the quiet signs might be telling you it's time to move on. Sign number 1, peace feels far away. You're not in chaos, nothing dramatic is happening, but you haven't felt peace in a long time. You're functioning, you're showing up, you're doing what you're supposed to do, but inside, there's a quiet heaviness, a restlessness, a knowing. When peace leaves the room, that's usually the first sign something is shifting. Peace doesn't lie. Your spirit doesn't lie. Your body doesn't lie. Sign number 2. You feel disconnected from who you're becoming. The life you're living and the person you're becoming don't match anymore. Your values shift. Your boundaries grow. Your vision expands. But your environment stays the same. That's the sign. Sign number 3. You keep trying to fix something that's already finished. You're pouring energy into something that's not pouring back. You're trying to revive something that's already expired. And you know it. You feel it. But you keep trying. Just because. What if I just try harder? What if I give it one more chance? What if I'm the problem? Let me free you real quick, friend. Everything that ends is not a failure. Some things end because your purpose is complete. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop fixing what's already finished. Sign number 4. You feel like a version of yourself, not yourself. You're performing, you're shrinking, you're editing yourself to keep the peace, going through the motions, but your heart already left the room. You're not growing, you're maintaining. You're not expanding, you are adjusting. And deep down, you know you've outgrown the space you're in. You are just afraid to say it out loud. Sign number 5. You keep asking for clarity, but you already know. You're praying for signs, you're journaling, you're talking to friends, but the truth is, you are not confused. You're afraid. You already know. You just don't want to deal with what knowing requires. And sign number 6, you feel guilty for wanting more. You want more peace, more joy, more purpose, more alignment, but you feel guilty for wanting all of those things. Like wanting more means you're ungrateful for what you already have. Let me tell you something. Wanting more is not betrayal. It's direction. Your desire is often the first whisper of your next season. I remember a season where I just knew it was time to move on. But I kept pretending I didn't know. I kept praying for clarity. And God was like, girl, I already told you. But I wasn't ready. Not because I lacked clarity, but because I feared the change. I didn't learn these signs from a book. I learned them by living them. There was a season in my life where everything looked successful on paper. I've shared a story in previous episodes. Good job, stable routine, respectable path. But every morning I felt heavy before my feet even hit the floor. I remember sitting in my car some days, just looking at the steering wheel. And I thought, if I keep living like this, I'm going to lose myself. And that scared me more than change ever could. In that moment, I understood something hard. Sometimes staying is more dangerous than leaving. The thing is, fear and obedience feel very similar in your body. Both make your heart race. Both make you second guess yourself. Both feel uncomfortable, but they speak differently. Fear says, what if I fail? What will people think? What if I regret it? What if I'm wrong? Obedience says, I'm scared, but I have peace. I don't have all the answers, but I feel led. This hurts, but it feels honest. Fear panics, obedience steadies. God rarely gives you the full blueprint. He gives you the next step, and usually the next step feels like loss before it feels like freedom. When I finally left what was draining me, it wasn't dramatic. Just quiet nights, tears, doubt. I questioned myself constantly. But underneath all of it, there was peace. Not happiness, not excitement, peace. And I learned something powerful. Peace is God's confirmation. Not comfort, not convenience. Peace. Peace is God's confirmation, friends. Ask yourself, am I growing here or just coping? Am I becoming more myself or less? Do I feel peace or just familiarity? Here's a mindset shift I want you to hold on to. Moving on is not quitting. Moving on is honoring the truth. Moving on is choosing alignment over attachment. Some things are meant to teach you, grow you, sometimes stretch you, and then release you. And when you stay past the expiration date, you start to shrink. You start to settle. You start to disconnect from yourself. Moving on is not the end. It's the beginning of your next chapter. And you are allowed to outgrow spaces. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to choose peace. you're allowed to choose alignment. And you, my friend, are allowed to choose you. So why do we stay longer than we should? I came up with 3 reasons. The first one being history. We remember what it used to be. The second one, identity. We attach our worth to staying. And the third one being fear. We don't trust what comes next. But outgrowing something doesn't mean it was a mistake. It just means it served its purpose, and so will the next season. So here's your reflection for this week. Please ask yourself, what am I holding on to out of fear instead of alignment? And then ask, what would peace look like if I let it go? Write it down, sit with it, and be honest with yourself. And if this episode touched something in you, sit with that. Don't rush to explain it away. Don't minimize it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Please pay attention to what your spirit is saying. Because sometimes the hardest part of moving on is admitting it's time. And if you are in that in-between place, not who you were, but not yet who you're becoming, I want you to know you're not lost, you're not late, you're transitioning. And that is holy ground. So what season do you think you're in right now? Staying, preparing, or letting go? And if this conversation helped you, subscribe so you don't walk this journey alone. Share this episode with someone who's been silently struggling with the same question. And if you feel comfortable, leave a 1-sentence reflection in the comments, please. What's one area in your life you're feeling the tug to shift? Like and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future episodes. Thank you once again for spending this precious time with me. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, be gentle with yourself and be kind to others. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that a season is over and trust God with what comes next. Bye-bye, friend.